You need to have these three components in your speed development, training, and program in order to actually get the results that you want. Because if you don't, you're going to be leaving a lot behind on the table. Now, in the last video, we went over the two different things, right? We went over the physical and we went over the technical side. Well, there's a little bit more. We're going to break it down for you. So, the major goal with all of this, and I had mentioned this a little bit in the last video, is power. We are chasing power in the true sense of the word. Power isn't just how heavy of a weight you can lift the fastest. Power, there is a huge amount of the velocity component, which we're going to talk about today, and especially in the speed realm that needs to be addressed in order to make yourself a very powerful athlete, as well as in this acceleration component. So, when we're talking about power, it is force times acceleration, okay? And our force just means mass times acceleration. And our acceleration, if we break that down a little bit further, acceleration is just a change in velocity. So how quickly you can reach that top speed is acceleration, okay? Now, when it comes to the acceleration component, we can really start to develop a tremendous amount of the force application that we need in order to get power through different various resistance and loads that we're going to be using. So when it comes to load, we have to pick the appropriate load that gives us the best amount of power, the most amount of power, because again, it's force times velocity. It's not just all force over here like a traditional back squat. While that is helpful to increase your overall or maximum force production or potential, we need to be choosing exercises in terms of speed and acceleration development that are going to maximize it. And that goes with the sets, the reps, the intensities, and the weights that you're using as well, because we need to have a matching velocity and a very high velocity over here. So when we're talking about force, some of the things that we use inside of the Elite Athlete Project and specifically inside the Elite Speed program are effective methods to increase the overall power production for the acceleration component and the top speed components. Literally, when we start to implement some of these, our kids' numbers start dropping right away, probably within 2-3 weeks, just because they get what true power development actually is in terms of speed development. It's not just in the gym, they start applying it in the right directions and the right angles, and they learn what it is to actually produce a very explosive amount of power, and then it translates over for them. And one of the things that we really love, and there are some specifics around this, around how much load you should use, percentage of body weights and sets and rest intervals and all that stuff, but just for you right now, sled drags where you have an attached harness around the waist or around the chest, and you're sprinting with the sled behind you. These are one of the most effective ways that we've seen and we use with all of our teams and any chance that we can with our athletes to develop that acceleration component. And the acceleration component is huge because this is the #1 area where athletes can see the biggest improvement. So if they're trying to go from a 5 flat to a 4.8, we can just knock out the acceleration component and they'll drop 0.2 of a second within, 2-3 weeks, and then we can start to work on the top speed. So typically you want to address technique, acceleration, and then move to top speed. Okay, so sled drags are one of our most favorite. Again, we have a very specific method that we use inside of the Elite Speed program, which works really well. But another one you can do are banded sprints if you don't have a sled. So that's a heavy band, you will need a partner, but also very effective. Because these two, again, equate back to that power equation, that high velocity, high force output. Then if you remember from yesterday, we talked about the physical state, that it has the elastic component too, so the transfer of force. So we want to implement various plyometrics in order to make that happen. So we need to have plyometrics that strengthen the ankles and feet to allow us to transfer that force. We also need to have plyometrics that work up the entire lower body to help us actually produce more power. We have low level or extensive plyometrics, and then we have more super power based ones that are called extensive plyometrics that we utilize. And the last thing, again, remember, we want to maximize this force potential and force production. So having a systematic approach with proven methods of strength training is going to actually help aid in all of this, okay? So it's not just speed training. You should have some strength training in there in order to maximize your overall force output, which we can then transfer and use and get faster with our speed training that we're going to be doing. So that is the force side. Now let's move over to the velocity side. When I mean velocity, think like top miles per hour, like trying to run 20 miles per hour, your top speed, okay? So the two biggest things, these are the buckets, right? Are resistance and load, stimulus, and technique. So we're gonna talk about our stimulus because this is the one that I see most coaches and people really mess up because it has to be very intentional. And if you look at like any track coaches, they know and understand this. That's why they can get their people really, really fast, and it's not just conditioning, right? So I want us all to know what the 95% rule is. So in order for our body to get more powerful, we have to reach a certain stimulus of our max effort best time in order to tell our body like, hey, we need to make some changes and we need to get faster. And if we don't hit this threshold, we will not be getting that stimulus we need in order to have our body make those changes to get faster. So this 95% rule is super simple. It means that you have to hit 95% or greater, I think, and personally, in order to receive that stimulus to get faster. So we're gonna jump down here to this example. So if we're running a fly 10, okay, a fly 10 is just a build up into a max effort top speed sprint for 10 yards or 10 meters. Okay, so say your best time at a fly 10, which these are really great and we use inside of our program in order to help our people get a lot faster. But say your best time is 1 second. So you ran that 10 yards in 1 second. If we're following the 95% rule, anything slower than 1.05 seconds is not going to give you the stimulus that you need in order to get the stimulus to make the changes to get faster. Okay, so think about 0.05 seconds. It's a blink of an eye, right? So if you are someone who is not providing or not getting adequate rest, you're not planning out when your top speed training is, you're gonna totally mess this up and you're gonna ultimately end up just conditioning yourself in a very not effective conditioning manner, or it'll be technique work. But really, when you're doing fly 10s and you're running top speed, you don't wanna be thinking about technique. You wanna just let it fly and go as fast as you can and take everything that you've learned and developed over the past few weeks and get as fast as you can, okay? Now, when it comes to frequency, like how many times, stimulus also comes down to like how many times we're doing this throughout the week, throughout the month, everything, right? In order to just maintain speed, it's really around 1 time a week you need to be hitting top speed. But we really think the sweet zone, and again, this depends on how much you're sprinting and what you're doing in sports, but we really think the sweet zone is 1 to 2 times per week that you should be hitting top speed with your training in order to increase that top speed and velocity component. Now, we've done the first 2 buckets, right? We've done the resistance load, the acceleration component, we've done the stimulus, we know what that is now. Now there's the technique aspect. And again, this is on its own one of the things I talked about yesterday because it is super important. Okay, I've listed out here the major areas and things that we do, some drills that we do in order to help the technique get better and better and better. Because the technique you're going to learn over and over and over time. It's not just going to do it once and it's going to get better. It may take you 2, 3, even 4 months. I know when I was relearning, it took me about 4 or 5 months for it to actually click, and then all my top speed just shot up after I got done with it. The biggest thing I think every athlete should learn, especially when it comes to acceleration, just learning how to run, is learning the negative step. And the negative step simply refers to a specific way that our foot comes in contact with the ground, which is slightly behind our foot or slightly behind our hip in order to help project us forward. Other things we use to help work our top speed and our mechanics are wickets. So wickets are simply a drill where there's a slight elevation, could be a hurdle, cone, whatever it is, where there's an active obstacle in front of us which forces us to subconsciously raise and pull our legs up quickly. That focuses on our front side and back side mechanics, and we highly recommend that you implement wickets when you are doing this. And hopefully, if you need more help, you can always comment below, ask us questions around how to set this up, or you can join the Elite Speed program where it's all taken care of for you. The next thing that we really think is some of the best when it comes to teaching athletes how to project out, not pop straight up, because those are some of the biggest areas we see, is our 3, 5, and 7 cone start. The 3, 5, and 7 cone start really teach the athlete how to push their foot into the ground to project their hips forward, because that's the main goal. We want to project our hips forward. We don't want to reach with our feet, because remember, we still need to hit this negative step, but we are attacking back. We are pushing hard, applying a lot of a force behind ourselves in that negative step, and we are gaining distance. We are not reaching for it. That is the biggest thing. In the 3, 5, and 7 cone start will help you with your initial acceleration and getting and starting to get into that transition phase before you go into top speed, which we really like. And then you need technique drills, okay? We need to have some simple techniques where you can develop the motor pattern, which is just how your body moves, the skill of how we want to move to run, which focus on your front and backside mechanics. So a simple one, think of like A-skips, or another very good one that we call our high knee butt kick, teaches us those very aggressive backside mechanics. There's thigh switches, things of that nature, but we have them all inside of the Elite Speed program. But these are the things to remember in order and to implement and to use in order to increase your overall power and get faster. So I hope this was helpful. Again, join the Elite Speed program. All this is taken care of for you. Coach, myself, and Coach Albert are all in there. We have a group. We do technique breakdown. We do everything for you. So click the link below and sign up today.